I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of Tales from Godric's Hollow, the world's finest Harry Potter podcast, despite what you may read on the internet, because let me tell you something, folks. Not everything you read on the internet is true. Unless you read that Tales from Godric's Hollow is the best Harry Potter podcast, in which case it is 100% confirmed by me, the muggle of this show, Josh Brown. As always, I am joined by the professor of the podcast, my co-host, Matt Sonnenberg.
How you doing, Josh?
Doing fantastic. I feel like we could go back to the professor title.
I like it.
Yeah, I feel a lot of confidence in professors this week. Last week I had to drop it because, let's be honest, I just wasn't happy with the way things were proceeding with Hogwarts. So
Sure.
But this week, oh boy,
A lot of stuff going on.
A
lot to wrap up, like you said, and
episode 10. This is the end of our journey as far as the first book is concerned. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, of course. We're going to be talking about the final 2 chapters of the book. This will not be the last podcast we do regarding the Sorcerer's Stone, as next week we will be talking all about the movie, which we will watch at some point in the next week. But this is the end of the first book, Matt.
it is.
I could honestly tell you that I did not think that we would get here.
Really?
We might have struggled. We might have pushed through.
Okay.
Going into it, I felt like maybe after 3 or 4 of these episodes, I was going to just be burnt out and not interested enough to want to continue.
Okay.
Not going to lie to you.
It's fair enough. I like the truth.
However, one, your crazy recording schedule to start the show with several episodes in 2 weeks' time,
Sure.
combined with how amazing this first book was, made it impossible to not finish this book.
Sure.
With that being said, I think we're going to have to continue on to the next book.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. It's, I tweeted out and I also texted you, I have never been more excited to record one of these episodes than I am tonight, because I felt some things reading these last 2 chapters, Matt. Some things happened.
Yeah?
Yeah. And we're going to talk about them, but
I'm very excited to see how you feel about this.
I did not expect the emotional response I had to some things like I had.
Okay.
Caught me off guard.
I will admit too, when I read through the book now too, I'm not only taking notes so I can remember things I want to talk about, but as I'm reading through again, I'm trying to imagine how you might react to it.
Right.
And up until this point, like I've nailed some of the reactions, but you've reacted to some things I wouldn't have expected as well.
Sure.
So in these last 2 chapters, as you're kind of alluding to, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure that there's going to be some reactions I missed.
Yeah.
But I'm very much looking forward to this episode myself.
I knew this was going to be the end of this story, of the first year at Hogwarts for Harry, the conclusion of the Sorcerer's Stone story that was being told. I knew there were some points that were going to be hammered home by the end of this book. I had in my head predicted some things that would come up again and would get clarified, some lingering mysteries throughout this first book that I kind of suspected we would get some answers to. But there were some things in here, Matt, that I just, some I'm a little angry about. Some I'm just overwhelmed with joy and sadness at the same time about. Some I'm kind of irritated at you about, because for the last 9 episodes, I've been sitting up here talking some smack about some people and just spouting off some random predictions and rumors and theories about some people, and you just let me go. Like,
Yep.
And like you said, like, everybody was there at one point, like when they first read it for the first time, and yeah, that's true. But like I also pointed out to you, not everybody had those reactions recorded and put out and broadcast on the internet for everybody to listen to and snicker about. So, you left me out to dry on a few things, Matt.
Well, I guess I'd have to say that's what you get for not reading the books in the first, nearly 20 years that they've been available.
It's true. Or really for not paying attention when I watched this movie the first time, because if I had paid even a little bit of attention,
you would have seen some of these things
Some
coming.
of these things would not be so surprising. And yet,
Yes.
Here we sit. And kudos for you for not breaking. Because
Yep.
I'm sure there were times when you're just like, oh, this idiot, this guy has no idea what he's talking about right now.
Oh, I think it's all going to be worth it for this episode, though.
Yeah. And shout out to the listening audience out there for never tweeting at me and letting me know how ridiculous I sounded sometimes, because most of you out there have read or watched the movies at least and knew what was happening and knew what was going on and knew that I was out of my mind on a few things. And you guys played it well. Well played, listening audience. Wow. Lot to unpack here, Matt. A lot
Yep.
to unpack. Before we get started with the show, and even before we get started with the normal recap that we usually start the show with, got to send out some thank yous. First of all, I don't remember if we did this on the podcast or not last week, but Jess Carter,
Yeah.
who sent us some handmade Harry Potter bookmarks.
Yeah. I out of the blue. She, I mean, didn't even contact me for an address or anything. She just used the address I have on some of my other websites to send it to my P.O. box, and I didn't realize it until she mentioned something. It was like, "Did you get it yet?" And I'm like, "Get what?" Like, no, I haven't gotten anything. But yeah, fantastic Harry Potter bookmark, handmade.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing.
Yeah, little golden snitch. I appreciate it so much. Everybody that's received them has loved them, so thank you, Jess, for that, for sure. Also, this last weekend, Matt, you and I, we were in Seattle, gallivanting around the city, pretending that we were attending a show called PAX West or PAX Prime. When I came home, Matt,
Yeah,
there was a box on my doorstep
really.
waiting for me. I noticed it was from Amazon, and I immediately went into the mode of, what did I order that I forgot about?
Yeah, those are interesting. Interesting boxes sometimes.
Especially when I knew I was going to be gone for several days. Like, I was pretty conscious, I thought, of not ordering things to be delivered while I was gone, because why would you do that? That's silly.
Yeah, sit on the front porch or something.
Yeah. So I opened it up because it had my name on it.
Yeah.
And I was figuring I was just going to surprise myself with something. Not the first time, won't be the last time. In the box, though, Matt, was something I did not order. It is a pop vinyl figure of my boy Hagrid.
Really?
6-inch one.
Yeah.
The much bigger than usual pop vinyl figure.
I'm very much familiar with that figure.
He's holding a pink umbrella.
Of course.
He's looking very giantly and adorable at the same time. And so there's this pop vinyl that I know I've seen. I've thought about getting at some point, especially within the last few weeks of doing this podcast with you. But I hadn't pulled the trigger. You know, I wasn't jumping down that rabbit hole quite yet. But then I thought, well, maybe I did order it, because I definitely looked at it at one point. Did I hit that one-click purchase button?
Accidentally hit the button? Yeah, I've heard about that.
Because that wouldn't be the first time either. Turns out it was sent to me as a gift from someone in our community named Alex Correjo, a.k.a. Atari Alex.
Yes. Well done, Alex.
With a note attached. It says, a gift for you. Congrats on completing the first part of your Harry Potter journey. Sorry about the damaged box, but I know you'll throw it away anyway. Tell Matt I would have bought him one too, but he already has them all.
Fair enough.
So there you go. So thank you, Alex. I am the proud new owner of a Hagrid pop vinyl figure, and I couldn't love it any more than I already do. So this is awesome.
That's awesome.
It's going to be a staple on my recording table every time we do this episode, every time we do this show now. So right next to my Death Eater wand, Matt. Whatever that is, I still don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Death Eater wand that you bought because it looked cool.
It does. It still looks cool.
I'll give you that.
I definitely feel like I'm going to regret picking this side, though, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel a sense of Slytherin in this wand. Can't say I'm particularly happy about that. The more I look at it, I'm just like, that's a snake? A Slytherin household? Like, what was I...
Nothing.
Why didn't anybody stop me? Why didn't you stop me, Matt?
To be honest, when you bought the wand, we hadn't actually agreed to the podcast.
That's true. So you just assumed that I would have this Death Eater wand and I would never know anything about it, and that would be that.
Yep.
Rookie mistakes, my friend. Rookie mistakes. At this end of this episode, we're going to announce the winner of the Blu-ray set of films giveaway.
We are.
Thank you all in advance for submitting your iTunes reviews and all that jazz. Greatly appreciate it. So into the episode, we'll announce who won. We'll get that sent out to you. So in theory, you'll be able to watch the first movie before we record next week's episode about the movie.
That's the plan.
So
now, of course, if you live halfway across the world, I can't guarantee it'll get there in time, but we'll do our best.
That's for sure. As I alluded to before, Matt, before we start the show, we have to start the show with a recap of last week's show.
Yes.
Episode 9. Episode 9 is pretty loaded itself.
It's true.
I'm going to try to do this all from memory once again because I did not have notes last week. Spoiler alert, going forward, I did take notes for this episode. I felt like there were enough things going on that I absolutely 100% needed to make sure I remembered all the talking points I wanted to talk about.
I like it.
Last week, though, this is going to be good. So last week we covered chapters 16, 17?
Last week was 14 and 15.
14 and 15. I don't remember the chapter numbers. So the first chapter was named something about a dragon.
Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. There we go.
Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. He's a dragon.
Yes.
He's a dragon that our friend Hagrid hatched from a dragon egg that he won from some shady character in a local drinking establishment. I assume the Leaky Cauldron, because where else would Hagrid be drinking? So he won this egg from this guy, and Hagrid's always wanted a dragon. And you're not supposed to have dragons, Matt. Dragons are banned.
Yep, they are illegal.
Totally illegal, unless they're illegal to have as pets captured. There are dragons all around that are wild.
Yes, they're illegal to. I believe they mentioned breed, but I believe they are just illegal to own.
Right.
But out in the wild, what are you gonna do?
Can't do nothing except tame them, like our boy Charlie.
Yes.
Out in
Romania.
That's the place. So Hagrid has this dragon egg. He hatches it in the fire because that's what you do with dragon eggs. If anybody has watched Game of Thrones, we know this is 100% historically accurate. Harry, Hermione, Ron, they know this is bad. They know this is trouble for Hagrid. They don't want their friend Hagrid to get in trouble by having a dragon. They agree to help him get rid of the dragon. And this includes contacting Ron's distant brother, Charlie. And Charlie sends some friends to come pick up the dragon so they could transport the dragon back to Romania to live free. And so they have to go up in the top of the watchtower, the very top of Hogwarts. Very, very, very tip top in the middle of the night. Problem is, they have to do this knowing that the mischievous Mr. Malfoy was onto them and knew, or possibly knew, of the dragon, and then got wind of their plan to get rid of the dragon, because he's just always lurking and seems to be in the right place at the right time, always. So they use the cloak, the invisibility cloak, to go up. Ron did not go because he... Let's see, I think he got bit by something and was infected.
Yeah, he actually got bitten by Norbert.
Oh, that's right. The dragon bit him.
Yeah.
He had an allergic reaction, and that was no good. So Hermione and Harry went up top together in the invisibility cloak. They snuck past everybody. They watched Malfoy get in trouble in the hallway. He got caught by somebody. Somebody caught him.
Professor McGonagall.
Ah, yes, it was her. I couldn't remember if she caught him or if she was just punishing him.
Yeah, I at least get the idea in my head that he kind of went to McGonagall and said, "Hey, this is what's up," and took her up to the tower to show her what was going on. And then when there was nothing there, he got punished.
Sure, that makes sense. Because she doesn't seem like she would be the one roaming the halls looking for kids up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's what they have Filch for.
Yeah, that's Filch. Oh boy. So they meet up with Charlie's friends. They pass off the dragon. Everything's good. They're celebrating. They got rid of the dragon and saved Hagrid from getting in trouble. They watched Malfoy get in trouble right before their eyes. Everything's just coming up Harry Potter. And they start heading back down to the room, and they get busted. Boom, right in the middle of the hallway. Uh-oh. They forgot the invisibility cloak.
Yep.
They left it up there. Can't do that. You can't sneak around invisible if you don't have the invisibility cloak on. It's not going to be good.
Makes it kind of hard, yeah.
Yeah. So they got busted. They got detention. Those two got detention. So did Malfoy. Ron did not get detention because he's still sick. He's suffering. So the next chapter, I think that went into the next chapter from there, was the Forbidden Forest.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And that's where we learned what the detention was going to be. They got dragged out in the middle of the night, essentially at 11 p.m. I believe it was.
Yep.
So super late for a detention, as far as I'm concerned. I was it didn't seem logical to me. Couldn't tell you who was taking him out there.
Filch.
It was Filch taking him out there?
It was Filch.
Okay.
Yep.
Of course it was Filch. But he was taking him to Hagrid's house, because Hagrid was the one that was going to be responsible for enforcing the detention on these 3 children. Which, you know, hey, if anybody's going to give you detention, it might as well be Hagrid, right?
I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem was the detention was all about helping Hagrid complete a task that he was very concerned with getting done. And that was, of course, tracking down a bloodied, battered, and probably dying unicorn.
Yep.
In the forest. They had to track it because of its glittery, glowing, magical unicorn blood that it was dripping all over. They're not supposed to be in the forest. That's why it's called Forbidden. That's how those names work. But they had to go. They had to go essentially put this unicorn out of its misery because Hagrid doesn't like animals to suffer. In the forest, they split up with Hagrid's pet Fang, who's actually a coward and isn't good for anything, we learn. Oh, Neville was with him also.
Yep.
Totally forgot Neville.
I figured you'd get there.
Oh, Neville. Because Neville got caught in the hallway with them, and it was wrong place, wrong time for Neville.
Yeah, he was trying to warn them.
Yeah. So he's there also with Malfoy, Hermione, and Harry, and Fang, and Hagrid. And they're trying to track down these unicorns. They come across some centaurs. Centaurs are like the hippies of the forest. Little spacey. They just drift off into thought. They're definitely like elitist. Like they think they are better than everybody else. They also appear to like know what's going to happen before it happens. And they're very smug about that.
Yep.
But they also don't want to share the information at all. They just...
So not very useful.
No, they just like everybody to know that they know, but they don't let anybody know what they know.
Yes.
So, like you said, not useful at all. Let centaurs, get over yourself. Do some good in this world. Well, one of them did. Let's see, there was Bane. I only remember that because it's a Batman villain. There was a centaur with a red beard who, in my head, I picture as one of the guys from Game of Thrones. I don't remember his name.
So yeah, there was. We first met Ronan. And then Bane came up behind him.
Right.
And then there was Firenze.
Yeah. How am I going to remember Firenze? I don't know. So Firenze end up saving Harry from this mysterious creature that they encountered, Harry and Malfoy, out in the forest. It was feasting on the dead unicorn. There was unicorn blood just dripping from it. It was dark and creepy, and Harry's scar was like pulsating and hurting really bad, and the centaur helped Harry, slung him over his shoulder onto his back and galloped away, and the other centaurs made fun of him and called him a basic mule because centaurs are way too good to carry muggles or wizards around on their back. But we kind of got the inclination that this was possibly Voldemort.
Yep.
In some shape or form. We don't really know the haps with that. But we did find out that... is this where we found out that Snape and Quirrell were talking? Right after they came out of the forest?
It was somewhere in there.
Somewhere mixed in there.
Harry basically, got kind of separated or saw something and grabbed a broom and followed him.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a little... was it before or after? But somewhere where, he had access to the brooms yet. And...
Definitely we were able to piece together the fact that what we possibly met in the forest was possibly Voldemort, and Snape was probably helping Voldemort by trying to obtain the Sorcerer's Stone, which was hidden, and he was trying to bully Quirrell into giving him access to be able to get it. And Harry kind of put all this together, and then like this big freak out moment of, oh boy, here we go, like it's game time.
Yeah, so Snape's meeting with Quirrell in the forest was actually the very end of chapter 13.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
Sure. I think that's about it.
Yeah, that was about it. The last thing we saw was Harry got back to his room and found his invisibility cloak.
It was back.
It was back.
Someone had scooped it up from the top of Hogwarts and re-delivered it to him.
Yep.
It's very nice of this person.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving on to chapter 16 tonight, entitled Through the Trapdoor.
I wonder what's going to happen.
As far as new characters, I'm just going to put out there now, there are no new characters in the last 2 chapters in the book, thankfully. It'd be a kind of weird place to introduce someone.
Well, funny you bring that up.
Yeah?
Because I have a question.
Sure.
There was a character that was mentioned several times in this chapter that, for the life of me, I could not remember who it was. And the character was never really properly introduced, so I assumed it was someone that we had met before. So I've been waiting for this part of the podcast for you to tell me it was a new character and that I was losing my mind. Lee Jordan.
Lee Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
You've actually asked about him a couple of times.
It's not sticking, apparently.
Yep. So Lee Jordan, he was actually mentioned just by first name way back in like chapter, 3 or something, when they're getting on the train.
Okay.
He is a friend of Fred and George Weasley.
Mm-hmm.
He is the announcer of the Quidditch matches.
Oh, okay. That kid.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's Lee Jordan.
That's why they were so nonchalantly talking about him.
Yep.
Okay. I assumed he was a friend and like in the group somehow, but I was not making the connection with anybody that we've like talked about in length, but
yeah.
Clearly I was wrong.
He just makes cameos here and there.
Sure.
He's not, obviously not part of the trio that we're following along. He's not even in their year. So you'll see as we go along, we always focus more on people who are in Harry's year at school.
Also, I think the part that's throwing me off is like the only time that like they went into great detail about who this kid is and like the character was when he was calling the Quidditch match.
Yep.
So bringing him outside of that element and just talking about him like he's just another student like is not ringing a bell at all.
Yeah, that's something that isn't really driven home too much because we are just following Harry around. And like I said, most of his time, well, his classes for sure are just spent with the other first years. And even his time outside of class is generally just spent with other first years. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't necessarily see all these other students all that much. And so they don't get mentioned all that much. And it is what it is.
Yeah. It's just a little jarring to have a name drop like that and then expect people to try to remember who it was.
I would imagine my first time through, I probably didn't recall that. Mm-hmm. But like I said, since I've been through these books enough and watched the movies enough that, yeah, sure. Lee Jordan is a guy that comes up from time to time.
Yeah, in this chapter, like I say, he's mentioned a couple times, but it was just in passing and part of the group, so it was no big deal that he was around at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew. Now that we got that out of the way.
So moving into chapter 16. Mm-hmm. My first couple of notes aren't really big to the story. They're just little things I like about the magic world. Like when they're taking their exams, we have quills with anti-cheating spells. Mm-hmm. And then just sometimes how J.K. Rowling writes things. There was a phrase in there. She let me see if I can find the actual. I'm not gonna be able to find the actual quote now, but she mentioned something about how Harry had to remember how to make a forgetfulness potion.
Right.
And it's like, yes, remember how to make a forgetfulness potion. Yes, I got you. I see what you did there.
Breathing down the necks while they tried to remember how to make a forgetfulness potion.
Yes.
Yeah. This the whole like explanation of the practical exams that they had to take was fascinating.
Yeah.
Having to turn a mouse into a snuff box, and points are given for how pretty the snuff box was, but taken away if it had whiskers. Come on now, come on, that's too good.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
I appreciated that.
Yeah, you get some good visuals in there, like that to make a pineapple tap dance.
Mm-hmm. and it kind of showed like how much, because throughout this book, it's been like the first year of Harry Potter being at the school. And when he first got there, much like many students, like he didn't really know how to use the magic and didn't really know what he was doing. And it hasn't really been, it's been brought up here and there for different reasons. Obviously, Hermione has been just excelling at using magic in many different ways. But they've never really like kind of thoroughly explained the learning curve that they've been on. So then to get to this point in the book where the final exams, they're doing all this really cool magic. It's like, well, they have learned a lot. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Because as we mentioned before, we kind of jump chapter to chapter can be a couple months.
Yeah.
Because we're flying through the school year. And so we don't necessarily get a lot of explanation of what's going on in class because there's so much going on outside of class.
Right.
So it is nice to see. It's like, yes, by the end of the year, this is the kind of stuff they should be able to do.
Yeah. And it's just so nonchalant too. Like, it's just, I appreciate like there was the callback to how much they have progressed over, several months in the first year. So
yeah.
Also, like, one random thing that I picked out that just stood out is when Hermione was talking about how she shouldn't have even bothered trying to remember the 1637 werewolf code of conduct.
Yep.
Hermione, what? She's amazing.
Yep.
She just doesn't stop learning, does she?
No. Like you said, we all know Hermione. We have met Hermione somewhere in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she just pulling through once again.
Yeah. There was another creature brought up in this book, or in this chapter.
I was hoping you'd catch this.
Very just nonchalantly, just kind of dropped in here. I mean, werewolves, sure. Okay.
Yep.
That's not surprising, considering everything else at this point.
Yep. After all the other ones, werewolves fit right in.
Sure. Yeah. Totally.
Actually, yeah. They had when they were going into the forest last time, I think it might have been Malfoy or Ron or someone kept mentioning, it's like when they're like, what are we going to run across? Are there going to be werewolves?
Mm-hmm.
I think they did bring that up. So yeah. But once again, werewolf code conduct.
Right.
Sure.
But then, so after the exams, everybody's done and kind of taking a breather. They're hanging out down at the lake.
Yep.
It's a hot day. Everybody's just kind of relaxing, just decompressing. And Lee Jordan and the twins are tickling the tentacles of a giant squid that's just hanging out at the lake.
Yes, they are.
What?
Yep. What? There's a giant squid that lives in the lake.
Because why not?
Yep.
I mean, sure. Okay.
And apparently a rather friendly giant squid.
Yeah. Just
that doesn't mind coming up to shore and being tickled.
I have the craziest, weirdest obsession with giant squids.
Really?
As far back as I can remember, down in California, Santa Barbara Natural History Museum, they had this one room that was dedicated to ocean life in the Pacific Ocean specifically. and they had a replica, and I'll always remember this forever, hanging from the ceiling of this room. Once you enter the room, all the way pretty much to the end of the exhibit, they had a replica giant squid. And I was always fascinated by it because, like they had some plaques and stuff to tell you about the giant squid, and they were always talking about how giant squids have never been photographed, never been videotaped, never been caught alive, never been seen alive. People have never recovered a full giant squid carcass. There's only been tentacles that have been caught or washed up, bits and pieces, enough to where we as a human species knew that a squid of this size and magnitude existed in the wild, but we had never seen it, or the people had seen it. It was like one of those fisherman's tale, like how big really was it, So there's always this mystique around this animal that we knew existed in some form or fashion, and had guesses as to how big it could be or what it could possibly look like. Like, did it actually look like a squid, but just giant size, all these questions, and this was in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Like, as far as technology was, like, we still hadn't caught this thing at all.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I was always fascinated by it. Like, have your Loch Ness monsters and your Bigfoots and everything like that, who, are just stories, and there's no actual evidence to prove the existence of any of these creatures. Except this giant squid, who, like, we have evidence of, but it still remained so elusive. So my whole life, I've always been fascinated by the thought of, like, these giant creatures living in the ocean that we know nothing about. Yep. And several years ago, it was like, I want to say like 3-4 years ago, maybe even less than that, was this fishing expedition, I believe in Japan. Like, they were dead set on trying to find a giant squid, and they actually captured still photos of a giant squid down the bottom depths of the ocean for the first time. And, like, all these, you see this image of this giant creature attacking this camera down there, and like, I remember, Matt, like, no kidding, I remember as soon as the news broke that this had happened and the video and the pictures surfaced, and I felt like such a kid again, because, like, this thing that nobody really thought was real but possibly could be real, and it was probably real but we weren't sure, like, became true in just that, like, instantly. It turned from this replica thing, this giant plastic mold of what it could look like that I always saw hanging up, to this real life, alive creature. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Giant squids are a special place in my heart, man.
Awesome.
So then to bring it back in this book, I'm like, oh, you got me. You got me.
They knew you were coming.
Of all the things that could have been in that lake, giant squid. I'm like, oh, come on. This is meant to be, Matt. This is meant to be.
I like it.
Yeah.
Whatever we can use to draw you in, we'll try to write it into this book.
If you told me there was a giant squid in it months ago, Matt, this would have happened so much quicker. It's your fault.
Well, I had no idea you had such an affinity for giant squid.
It's not like that ever comes up in basic conversation.
No, not so much.
Sure. Anyway, I'm sorry to derail it, but I had to talk
Not
about
a problem.
the attachment to this giant squid getting tickled. Because now I want to tickle a giant squid.
Life goals. Yeah. While we're hanging out by the lake, we do hear about Harry's scar hurting again. It's kind of been a constant on and off thing. But we don't think much. We don't think much of it. He
Right.
won't go to the doctor or Madame Pomfrey because he doesn't think he's sick. It's like, what is he going to tell her?
Right.
But
Also, it's like something that he's kind of dealt with his whole life.
yep, it hasn't always hurt. It's hurt a lot more this first year at school,
Mhm.
definitely.
But it's been off and on. It would happen throughout his life, and he
Yeah.
always dealt with it and moved on.
Yeah.
So he wasn't too concerned, although he kind of had a suspicion why it was starting again and why it was so intense this time.
Yeah. It probably didn't help that it was getting to be more of a thing, and so it was getting to be more constant, and it instead of just being an occasional annoyance, it was becoming something he had to deal with on a more consistent basis.
Right.
No one wants to do that.
Right. For sure. But that's when he had the epiphany.
Yes.
And he started to put all the puzzle pieces together. Which, kudos to him, because like I read that whole like explanation as to how he got to that conclusion, and I just I don't know how somebody would have come up with that. He's a smart cookie.
Yeah. Definitely.
All comes back to Hagrid.
When you're thinking about it 24/7, basically,
Sure.
all your exams are done.
Mm-hmm. Hagrid.
Yep. Back to Hagrid.
Hagrid. Again, I said this a long time ago. Worst secret keeper in the world. He may be loyal to Dumbledore and loyal to Hogwarts and loyal to Harry Potter and, the best friends anybody could have as far as giants are concerned.
Yep.
But do not trust this guy with secrets.
Yeah, especially not when they're, could essentially be life or death.
Right. Especially when there's booze involved.
Yeah. But what are you going to do? I mean, assign a guard to Hagrid to watch him 24/7 and make sure he...
That doesn't sound unreasonable at this point. I feel like they could conjure up some sort of creature to be on patrol. Hagrid patrol.
Or is there a anti-drinking spell or something?
Right, yeah. So we found out that Hagrid was not getting rosy in the cheeks down at the Leaky Cauldron.
Yep.
It was instead another pub in Diagon Alley called Hogshead.
I'll stop you right there. It is not in Diagon Alley.
Oh. No.
Yeah.
I thought you said it.
Nope. In this chapter, they tell us the Hogshead, that's the pub down in the village. Now, they don't explain it here in this book yet, but I will tell you because you've been there. The village that they're referencing here is actually Hogsmeade, which you have visited, and I believe we even visited the Hogshead pub.
Okay. For some reason, I swear. Okay. All right. I believe you.
Yep. Leaky Cauldron is in Diagon Alley, or the entrance to Diagon Alley. But yeah, the Hogshead is actually in Hogsmeade.
Sure. All right. My apologies.
It's all good.
Regardless, we know
here.
that there's another pub.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say he mentioned something about it being shady, but
he definitely said it was shady. Well,
yeah,
that's where shady characters were.
Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to find it now. Keep talking. Keep talking. I'll do research.
But yeah, so he's down at the Hogshead, and Harry's questioning him about how he got the egg and what else, what this character looked like, which of course he was hidden, but then he wanted to basically find out one piece of information is if he told him how to get past Fluffy.
Right.
Which, unfortunately, Hagrid was drunk enough because this stranger kept buying him drinks
Sure.
and getting more and more information out of him. And he did tell him that all you have to do is play him a bit of music and he'll go straight off to sleep.
Yeah.
And that was enough for Ron, Harry, and Hermione right there. They didn't, talk to each other about it. They were just off and running.
Yep.
Off to the races.
Because they knew Hagrid done messed up.
Yep.
Yeah. Poor guy. Hagrid.
So yeah, they tried to go and basically warn somebody. In this case, Dumbledore.
Mm-hmm.
But they had no idea where Dumbledore was or how to get to Dumbledore, which up to this point, I hadn't thought of either. It's like they hadn't really been to Dumbledore's office. They didn't know how to get in contact with Dumbledore. He's the headmaster of the school, but if you weren't sent to his office directly, you didn't necessarily have a lot of contact with him.
Yeah.
He didn't teach any classes, as far as we know.
Right.
He wasn't one of their teachers, at least.
And he kind of just showed up when he was needed.
Yep.
But again, like you, I hadn't thought about this before because I was like, how could they not know where Dumbledore's office was? And then I started thinking about it. Well, it's because Dumbledore just shows up when he needs to show up.
Yep.
Nobody ever goes to him. He comes to people.
It's a big castle.
Yeah.
It like if you wanted to get a hold of Professor McGonagall, like where would you go? Like maybe she might be in her classroom,
right?
Potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, does she have an office in the castle? Does she have? Does she live in the castle?
Right.
Does she have her own sleeping quarters somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go to find her outside of class?
Sure.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's just Dumbledore we see even less of because he's not necessarily a teacher.
Right. He's Dumbledore.
Yep.
McGonagall doesn't like that they're trying to find Dumbledore.
Yep.
Shocking. But then they drop the two words that make her drop everything.
Yes, literally.
Sorcerer's Stone.
Yep.
And I guess I hadn't thought too much about it either, but like it would make sense for her to know about it. But I was also in my head thinking that very, very few people knew of its existence, especially it being at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
I know they had talked about, the other professors putting spells to help guard it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that part, but for some reason it didn't click with me that she would, like maybe they were just instructed to put spells on. I don't know. I guess if Snape and Quirrell knew about it, like obviously McGonagall would know about it also, but for some reason, I guess I was shocked at like Harry like telling. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at, but at the same time, it's the other teachers are just better secret keepers.
Yeah.
Than like Hagrid was, or
that's for sure.
Like Snape, he tried to keep his conversation secret, but when you have Harry sneaking around, following you into the forest, or sneaking into empty classrooms, or using the invisibility cloak,
right?
What are you going to do against something like that?
Mm-hmm.
You got a very mischievous first year, running around like he owns the castle, and there's just some things you can't keep secret. So.
Yep, that's for sure. So the trio, they decide that they need to neglect McGonagall's warning of not going to look for the Sorcerer's Stone, to not go try to protect it. Dumbledore's gone. He had been summoned away by the Magic Council.
The Ministry of Magic, yes.
And there we go. That's it. To London. So he's not there to protect Hogwarts and the Sorcerer's Stone. Mm-hmm. So who's left to do it other than Harry Potter?
Of course.
Of course. And Hermione and Ron and Neville?
Not quite yet. No.
Wrong place, wrong time, Neville.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. After their first attempt, they all end up back in the Gryffindor common room, and it just didn't work. They got caught. Mm-hmm. So they come up with a second plan. They have to go back at night. They're going to use the invisibility cloak. They're trying to wait until everybody's gone, and everybody is gone except for Neville.
And he tries to stop him.
He does. And I think this is where we start to see why he was placed in Gryffindor, though. Like, no matter how many times he gets beat down, mm-hmm. no matter who he's standing up against.
Yep.
Like, we saw back, was that during the Quidditch match where Neville tried to take on Crabbe and Goyle?
Yeah.
By himself, and now he's standing up to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Like, he well, I can't say he has no fear, because he's kind of trembling as he does this, but something inside of him is motivating him to get to this point and say, this is what I need to do.
Right. Enough's enough.
Yep.
Like, and he's not doing it for their sake. You know, he's not doing it to try to protect them or keep them safe. Like, he's doing it in honor of the house.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't want Gryffindor to lose any more points and to be in trouble, and like, he's doing it for everybody else's sake. You know, he has no real notion about the gravity of the situation that they're in.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about the Sorcerer's Stone. He doesn't know exactly what's going on. He doesn't know that this is potentially like life and death. It's just like, I need to stand up for the pride of this house.
Yeah.
And I love how Ron was like, or Neville made the comment about, you're the ones that have been telling me to stand up, you know, to people. And Ron's like, not against us. And he's like, hey, this is on you guys. You know, you've been training me.
This is what you taught me to do.
I'm just putting it in action.
Yeah.
It doesn't work though.
No. Much
like every other plan Neville ever has.
Yeah, we're very quickly back to poor Neville.
Poor Neville. Hermione whips up a binding spell on him. He goes flat, face first into the floor. She apologized several times. She felt bad for it. Because poor Neville.
She stops after she did it and rolls him over and apologizes. Like, come on, Hermione. We're on strict timetable here.
Right. He'll forgive you, don't worry.
Yeah.
So that's when they get down into the trapdoor. Through the trapdoor. Yep. They put Fluffy to sleep.
Yep. Harry was thoughtful enough to bring along the flute that Hagrid had given him at Christmas, I believe.
Yep. His hand-whittled flute.
Yep. So there we are through our first obstacle.
Going into this, Matt, I was concerned because in my head I'm thinking, okay, music will put this animal to sleep.
Okay.
Immediately, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, not once have we ever touched on whether or not any of these three kids have any sort of musical talent whatsoever.
Yeah.
And even though Harry had like this wooden flute that Hagrid gave him, that doesn't mean that he knew how to play it. So I'm imagining these kids just going down there and starting to make noise, thinking hey, any music will work, and
Yep.
they get their heads ripped off because without knowing anything about their musical backgrounds, I just assume this is going to be just a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Hagrid was not lying when he said that all you have to do is start playing music and it just instantly goes to sleep. So, like,
Yeah.
one note
Very
in,
much so.
he's snoring.
Starts to get drowsy.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, and it still does get me a little bit that they consistently use the word flute,
mm-hmm.
and because I do come from a very musical background,
Uh-huh.
and so to me, flute, a flute of any kind is not easy to play.
Right.
It's not something the average person can actually just pick up and play.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I hear that Harry started playing it first and then handed it off to Hermione and she was playing, and in my mind, it almost has to be more like a recorder or something like that, where
Yep.
anybody can just blow into it and it does make a sound.
Or an ocarina?
Yes, there's something along those lines too. Yeah, but it's something where you can just blow into it and it makes a sound,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed because with an actual flute, well, unless it was like a pan flute, I guess that's kind of the same idea. But like with what I picture as a flute, like in an orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just blow into it and make a noise. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. There's technique involved.
Yes.
And that's what I was concerned about was, like, do these kids have any sort of technique? Like, is this just going to be them making noise and, like, irritating the dog instead of putting it to sleep?
Yeah. And I think it did help, though, that they had the invisibility cloak, too. Because from, if I remember correctly, they were in the room with the dog and he was awake,
mm-hmm.
but he wasn't attacking them yet because he couldn't see them.
Right.
And so they started playing the music and then he fell asleep and then they could do their thing.
So, had to suspend the disbelief just a little bit to accept the fact that these kids played musical notes well enough to put this animal to sleep.
Sure.
That's okay.
It's all good.
That's when the fun started.
Yeah.
Once they got through the door and into the trials and tribulations, the obstacle course of wizarding, as I wrote down in my notes.
Yes. I mean, if you're thinking about it, Fluffy was the first obstacle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more, okay. It was more or less the entrance into the obstacle course,
mm-hmm.
but it was an obstacle itself.
Right. And again, going back to, like, we had already known that several of the professors had cast spells to help guard this thing.
Yep.
It wasn't until, like, they actually called out Professor McGonagall, for creating, like, the real life chessboard.
Yep.
That I went back and like, oh, that's what's going on here.
Yep.
Because I was like, why are all these vines attacking the kids? Like, where did these plants come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like that they went back and kind of walked through it, and it's like, okay, this professor must have done this, and this professor must have done this.
Mm.
And yeah, kind of, if not just helping them through each of the dungeons, if you will.
Right.
But it also helped us, the readers, sort it all out and understand what was going on.
Sure. Here's one thing that bothered me.
Yeah.
Made me a little angry, not gonna lie. Broomsticks are just conveniently there.
Well, that's kind of how it is. Well, not well. You can argue with all of them, I guess. I guess I would. You're saying the broomsticks provided the method to get through that dungeon,
right?
Yeah. Well, I would go back even farther, like back to Fluffy. Like, why would you put a beast there that has a weakness? Like, you play it music and it falls asleep. Why, if you really wanted to protect it, why wouldn't you put something in there that basically has no flaws?
Sure. Because maybe that thing doesn't exist, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. But it's essentially creating. They needed to create a way so they could get back into get the stone if they ever wanted to or ever need to. It's almost like creating a backdoor if you're a computer programmer.
Sure, but if you were going in there knowing what the obstacle course was going to entail, like, you would know that, hey, I should bring a broomstick with me. You know?
Okay.
So the fact that there were just broomsticks in the room, like, waiting for them to be used in order to try to fetch this flying key. Like, who's just leaving broomsticks around here?
I will concede 1 point. I would be okay if there was one broomstick there.
But 3.
The real question is why there's 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's like locking something up way high and then conveniently leaving a ladder in the room.
Yeah.
Like, come on. I'm just saying, like, in the context of the story, yeah, it needed to happen, obviously. But it just seemed, I don't know. Like, I read that, I'm like, oh,
a little
really?
too convenient.
Yeah. Like, come on.
Sure.
Come on.
I'll give you that.
But, like, everything else, like, seemed to, like, fit. Like, nothing seemed...
Yeah, like the devil's snare was fine.
Mm-hmm.
The plant that's gonna attack you on its own. There wasn't a clear way out necessarily.
Right.
One note I did make that this is like I think the 3rd time we've seen Hermione using the blue flame.
Mm-hmm.
And it always gets me because when I watch Bond movies, James Bond.
Mm-hmm. Familiar.
Because all of his gadgets that Q gives him at the beginning of the movie, it's my I over exaggerate this, but typically he only uses each gadget once.
Right.
And once he's used that gadget, he can't use it again, just for whatever reason. You know, whether it blows up or he just...
It's a single-use item or...
Yeah, it just, for whatever reason, it seems like he always only gets to use it once, and then he's done.
Right.
And so it gets me that this blue flame keeps showing up again and again and again. We keep using it over and over.
Sure.
And I guess I kind of like it because that's more realistic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like, if you have this great weapon, use it again and again and again. Yeah. They tried, when they came to the locked door, they tried using Alohomora to open it. That's what they had used to open doors in the past, but it didn't work.
Right.
So.
Chess. Now, they set this up earlier in the story.
Yep.
Which I appreciated.
Yes.
Because it was brought up, but it was never really made to feel like it was necessary to the story when it was talked about.
The first time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of filler.
Yeah, it was just something they were doing in their free time, you know? This is what we do. We play chess just like you guys, except it's wizard's chess, and you control the pieces, and they kind of kill each other.
Right. So, we knew about it, but it was just like, it was kind of fluff. But then it's brought back up, and I loved that it was brought back up because this was going back to one of Ron's strengths, which isn't covered very much in this book. Ron is always trying to get out of the shadow of his older brothers. He's trying to find like his place. He's trying to make himself stand out as a Weasley on his own, not just based on his name. And one thing we did know about him was, one, he loves Quidditch more than possibly anybody else other than Professor McGonagall. Two, he's really good at wizard's chess.
Yep.
And this is Ron's thing. Like, as soon as it was like discovered that they, had to get past this game of chess, it was like, oh, this is going to be Ron's jam. This is what he's here for.
Yep. He was super excited about it.
Yeah. Nervous. I appreciate that Harry and Hermione just let him do his thing. They were just like, you tell us where to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, they both knew that they had been beat multiple times by Ron in chess.
Sure.
So it only made sense at that point.
Right. Now, like, for Harry to relinquish that control doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But for Hermione to, like, stand back and be like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and this is you. Like, I'm sure, it wasn't really well focused on, but I'm sure, like, as a character, it was super tough for her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't like being second to somebody else.
Yeah, to admit that there was something that someone else could do better.
Right.
And that or just the fact that she knew, whether she wanted to admit it or not, she knew she could not win this game.
Right. So, very, very cool dynamics going on there. I appreciated that. Then Ron sacrificed himself. Matt.
Absolutely. Huge sacrifice there. Because you get the idea that they make a point of this being a giant chess set.
Mm-hmm.
Like life-size chess set.
Right.
And so they talked about how brutally the normal chess pieces were destroyed.
Right.
So when we hear that he gets hit hard across the head.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm concerned about him.
Yeah, he knows it's coming, and he takes it.
Yeah. For the good of the team.
Yep.
Obviously, I knew like he wasn't going to die because I knew he goes forward in the story, at least a little bit, as far as I know. But still, like, I was like, well, are they going to not hit him as hard because he's a wizard and not, a chess piece? And I was like, nope, they're just going to smash him and see what happens.
Yep. These pieces aren't built to have feelings. They're built as a defense system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they are going to do essentially what they're programmed to do in our language. But of course it's magic, what they have been told to do.
Right.
So
his sacrifice allows him to go on to the next room, and that's when Hermione got her chance to shine once again.
There was one room in between there, but they got to kind of pass through it quickly.
Oh, that's right. The room with the troll.
Yeah.
And the troll's just laying on the ground.
Already knocked out.
Very, very interesting.
Yep.
Bigger and uglier and smellier than the one that they beat in Hogwarts.
Yep. So thankfully they didn't have to deal with that one.
But very curious, like, who's knocking out the troll? So we get to the last room, and there's all these potions, and this is when it's decided that this is like Snape's test.
He is the potions master.
He is, and the entrance and the exit are blocked by flames, and you need to pick the right potion in order to enter and pass through the flames to continue. Again, kind of conveniently, there's two potions, one that will let you exit and one that will let you enter.
Yep. It's true. It's true. Like, this would be another room. Like, why would you let them go back?
Yeah. Why would you give that option?
just trap them in this room and give them one option to go forward. And if they get it wrong, well, there you go. They shouldn't be here.
And there's two. So, like, what if Ron hadn't had to sacrifice himself? Like, what if he had played the chess game so well that they were able to win without him having to sacrifice himself and be knocked into oblivion?
Yeah, but once again, it's like the three broomsticks. It's who actually anticipated three people coming down here at once.
Right. So my note for this was when Hermione pointed out that this wasn't anything about trying to figure out potions, that it was just a puzzle based on logic.
Yep.
Which I picked up on as I'm reading like the explanation that on the note that was left for him. I'm like, oh, you just gotta. I like in my head I started like putting the potions like in the order that I thought they needed to go in. You know,
I was hoping you would,
and like crossing them out, and like I was so close to like grabbing a piece of paper and trying to solve this myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then she like pointed out that wizards don't have logic, or like the best wizards don't have any logic.
Yes, the quote was, a lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. So she didn't necessarily rule out all wizards, all great wizards even, but yes, most of them don't have a lot of logic.
Which is fascinating.
Yep.
You know, like I wouldn't think of it that way.
But it just goes to point out that you don't necessarily need to be logical in order to do magic.
Right.
You can learn the magic stuff without being logical.
Because that's a whole different skill set and a whole different mind frame.
Yeah, it's like you can learn to be an expert marksman without being logical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was fun because I was like, oh, Snape, you're trying to outsmart the room again, and this is going to backfire on you. Of course, she solves it because she's Hermione.
Yep.
And she takes the potion to allow her to exit. Also, I like the visual of they felt like they were filled with ice.
Yes.
And that allowed them to walk through the fire. Like, they didn't turn into ice.
Nope.
They didn't have, like, an ice shield around them. They just internally felt as cold as ice. And then just bravely walked through the fire and didn't get hurt at all.
Yeah, it amuses me, too, that they actually walked through the fire right away. Like, if this were me, I'm pretty sure I'd, like, stick my hand in and see how it feels.
A little tippy toe, like, is that hot? No? Okay.
And then maybe, like, jump through or something.
Exactly.
But, yeah, they just kind of, all right, if you say so, here we go. We're going to walk through.
Yeah. Very trusting in the potion.
Yep.
Which, you know, coming from Snape, like, should you be trusting this? Like, is this just a trick? Like, even though you figured out the puzzle, was it, you know, even the real solution to the puzzle? We don't know.
Sure. And if you want to talk about convenience again, how about this room here where there is still one swallow left of the potion you need to drink to move forward?
Right.
Why wouldn't the first person through here just drink the whole thing?
Yeah. Why would they have left any and allowed someone else to follow?
Anybody to follow them, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they shouldn't need to come back through this door again. They just need to... They might need the potion to get back out the other door.
Right.
But, yeah.
Why leave any in the first...
Yeah.
Regardless, it wasn't a trick. Snape did not try to outsmart the room too much. Harry was able to go through the fire and did not see Voldemort. Did not see Snape.
Nope.
But saw someone else.
End of chapter.
Let me tell you this, Matt.
Yep.
I lost my mind at the end of that chapter. Like, I knew I was going to just flip the page and start the new one and I would know what was going on. But I had this moment of, if Matt was diabolical and really wanted to make for an interesting podcast, he would have saved the final chapter for a completely different podcast.
I will tell you, I did consider it.
Oh, I do not know if I would have been able to stop reading. I would have been so mad at you. I'm not even lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the chapter breaks are great. They are put in very cliffhanger positions,
Mm-hmm.
but the problem is when the first medium that it's introduced in is a book, anybody can just keep on reading,
Right.
Unless like your teacher is reading it to you in class and you don't have a copy of the book to follow along or something. Like anybody can just keep on reading.
Or the story continues into another book that hasn't been released yet.
Yes. Wow, that would be a place to stop.
So I will thank you for not doing that to me.
You're welcome.
Because in the spirit of this podcast, I would have stopped, but it would have been
torture for the next week.
Yeah. The entire vibe of this podcast up to this point would have been completely different. We would have just bypassed all of this, and I would have just been talking about for an hour how you left me on the cliffhanger.
Sure.
That didn't happen.
Nope.
Moved on to the final chapter.
The Man with Two Faces.
Okay, here's a warning, folks. I'm going to move the microphone back a little bit because I'm going to raise my voice a little bit more than I'm used to. So, just hold on one second. Quarrel? Are you kidding me? Are you
didn't see that?
Freaking kidding me?
You didn't see that one coming, did you?
No! Oh! Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts.
Yep.
Okay. Totally messed up. I've been saying show after show how he has no right to be a professor anymore because he sucks at his job now. Something happened to him. He's all screwed up. He can't even... He's a bumbling... And
it all turns out that he's just a really good actor.
Really good.
Yep.
Really good. He's not stuttering.
Nope. He doesn't have a stutter.
He's not fearful of everything.
Nope. He's
It's not Snape.
Nope. And I'll give you a couple seconds to let that sink in, because this is where I brought in our Twitter poll of the week, because I wanted to know if anybody honestly had this figured out, because I know for myself I was right in your boat too. I had no clue that it was Quirrell. I maybe had an inkling if I really thought about it too much, which I don't think I did at the time when I was reading it. Like, obviously, they're leading you to believe it was Snape.
Yeah, and I had no reason not to believe that.
Exactly. He fits the profile. Everything he did fit right in. It made a lot of sense. And so
also, before you get to the poll, I know you want to talk about the poll.
No, that's fine.
But I know on social media, I think it was a couple months ago, I believe it was when the actor that played Snape passed away.
Yes.
There was a discussion that J.K. Rowling was trying to put to bed finally about whether or not she considered Snape to be a bad guy. And she didn't ever look at him as a villain. But other people did.
Yeah.
So I remember reading this discussion. And I remember thinking, okay, I know nothing about this character. I know nothing about, this book, like the series. I have no input whatsoever. But if the author of the entire series is sitting there saying that he's not a bad guy, in his heart of hearts, like he's not a villain, then why should she be doubted? Right?
Yep.
I knew this going into this book, Matthew.
Yeah.
I knew this. And I still thought that she was crazy. Like, I don't know what happens in the next books. I don't know
Sure.
how the whole Snape story continues. I don't know what else there is. I'm sure she was referencing the entire story and not just the first book when it came to this character.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, how could she see this character as anything but a villain? Like, even if he's just a puppet for Voldemort, he's still a bad guy. Like, he's still doing bad things. Like,
Yep.
there's no way, like, she has any right to defend this character. And like, the readers have every right to say that, like, no, he's totally a bad dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It,
then
it
this
definitely makes you
happens.
wonder.
And I'm just like, she got me.
Yeah. And I mean, you're just one book in. Everybody else has more context than you do, but you can already see the controversy that's there.
Yeah. He's a
So.
conflicted character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say it again. He just might be my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's an onion. There's lots of layers to peel back here.
yes, there you go. Getting back to the Muggle poll, though, I was actually a little bit surprised by how many people we had responded that they still haven't read the books.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know if those are people who are actively listening to the show or people who just ran across the poll and it's like, oh, well, there's an option that explains me.
Sure.
But in any case, I'm not surprised at all that a lot of people just don't remember. People closest to me, like my wife and my dad, I know, who both kind of follow along with the show here. They both told me personally that, yeah, they don't really remember. Either book one was so long ago or they only read it once and they don't really remember. You know, it. Like I said, if you read it when it came out, that was like 18 years ago.
Right.
So I don't remember a lot of things that happened 18 years ago, but I do remember reading this because, I mean, as you know, I like Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
It's been in my blood since, I started reading it. So I definitely did not see this coming. I did not figure out that Quirrell was the bad guy.
Yeah. Unbelievable turn of events. I probably would have listed 5 people, at least, ahead of him.
Yeah,
And that's just because I could probably only remember and name 5 people. He was way down on the list.
You would keep going if you could, yeah. And that's how the character was built. And like I said, he's just a very good actor. And as he mentions too, that Snape just played into what everybody would have expected. He played into that role so well that he was helping Quirrell more than he even knew.
Right. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sim got... Yeah, go ahead. Take it from there. I don't...
You need a minute.
I do. I still need a minute.
So yeah, we see Quirrell and he starts having a conversation with Harry and explaining what went on. And there are a couple things he makes callbacks to, like the Quidditch match when they thought Snape was trying to kill him, but when Hermione ran over to help, she actually knocked Quirrell over, which I don't know. Did you go back to that section of the book?
I did not. No, I took it for gospel.
Like it is actually mentioned in the book during that section that she rushes by Quirrell and knocks him over.
Sure.
I think like it says something like sends him head first into the stands or something like that. It's just kind of as she's rushing by, but we're all focused on getting to Snape and see what happens with Snape and can she get there in time. That no one pays attention to a detail like that.
Right.
At that point,
why would you?
I mean, that was so early in the book. It was his first Quidditch match.
Yeah, you're concerned about Harry. You're super angry at Snape.
Yeah. So I just appreciate that the little details like that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
That there is some little clues here and there that you can piece together, maybe if you wanted to, and figure out, oh, Quirrell has some involvement here.
Right.
Like Quirrell is always around at the same time.
The troll, like he's the one that came in and said that the troll was loose in Hogwarts. Yep. Like, yeah, because he let him loose.
He let the troll in. So yes, there is a troll loose in the dungeon.
Yeah.
And then he conveniently fainted.
Mm-hmm. So he didn't have to deal with it or be a part of it. I can't wait to watch the movie because I'm going to be looking for all of these things and like pinpoint every single part where it's just like, oh, they were setting this up from the beginning.
Yep.
Even back at Diagon Alley, Harry met him at Leaky Cauldron.
Yep. He did meet Quirrell back in the Leaky Cauldron already.
Just
yeah, he was the one who tried to rob Gringotts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why was he there? None of the other professors were at the Leaky Cauldron.
Right.
None of the other professors were in Diagon Alley.
Right.
What was he doing there?
Which is like I feel stupid, Matt, because we talked about like how Harry kind of realized that it potentially was broken into and was attempted to be robbed the same day that Harry was there, like shortly before he had gotten there or shortly after at some point in the timeline. And then like we knew that Quirrell was there.
Yep.
But like all this time it's just like, no, it was totally Snape. Of course it was Snape.
Yep. Snape's the bad guy.
I feel ridiculous.
Don't worry. Like I said, we were all there at one point.
And I'm blaming Slytherin House for...
Yep.
Just, yeah. Sorry. I messed up, folks. I messed up.
It's all good.
It's all good.
We'll get you back on track.
Okay.
And we see another return, not necessarily of a character this time, but the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah.
I've seen this thing before.
I did not think this was going to come back.
No. And Dumbledore said he was going to, find a new home for it. Who would have thought it'd just be down in the dungeons? It's like, okay, you're going to move it a few rooms away. Got it.
Right.
Down a few floors.
Good job, Dumbledore. Very nicely done to keep that the Sorcerer's Stone safe with the mirror.
Yep.
I like the visual of Harry looking in the mirror and seeing himself, but a paler version of himself. And then like reach into the pocket and pull out the Sorcerer's Stone. He's watching this all happen in the mirror. And then put it back in his pocket, but at that point, like he felt the Sorcerer's Stone actually drop into his pocket in real life.
So good.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Reading through the first time, I remember too. Like I had such a hard time understanding exactly how this was happening, and honestly, it's just one of those things you have to accept. It's magic.
Sure.
It's one of those times you can just say it's magic. And when we find out later that it's Dumbledore that set this one up too,
right? And
he's like the greatest wizard alive at this time, so he can essentially do whatever he wants with magic.
Yep. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Going back, and I have no idea if you'll actually be able to remember this or not, but when you're reading the books for the first time. The first book for the first time.
Sure.
And we've been talking about the Sorcerer's Stone for several chapters now. How did you picture the Sorcerer's Stone itself looking like?
Yeah, first time through,
Mm-hmm.
that is a difficult question.
Yeah, I know it's a long time ago for you.
I guess when I picture it in my head, it's kind of a multifaceted rock, probably in the kind of orangish amber color,
Okay.
because I know it makes gold,
Mm-hmm.
and so I kind of give it that kind of hue. It's probably a little bigger than like a baseball, maybe closer to the size of a softball. Yeah, that's probably the best description I can give you.
In my head, and I have no idea why this is. There was never any description about it before.
Yep.
But I was picturing it to be green and
Really?
almost looking like a rupee from like Zelda,
Okay.
like that shape. I don't know why. That's just how I always pictured it
Sure.
looking like.
Sure.
So I'm curious, like, if you're listening out there, like, I'm curious how you picture the Sorcerer's Stone looking, because like we finally got a description of what it looked like, and it was glowing bright red.
Yeah.
And able to fit in his pocket, so not that big.
Yep.
But I'm curious out there what you guys listening pictured it to look like, because it's one of those things without any explanation, your imagination just kind of takes you wherever. So
Yeah, that's a good question. I like it.
I'd be curious to see what other people pictured it as. Unless you saw the movie first and then you're like, don't.
Yeah, that's rough.
But still. So I just thought that little detail, I was like, oh, that's what it looks like. Because it wasn't important, like the look of the stone wasn't important at all. The shape, the color, nothing. None of that was important. But, it just kind of shows how you could picture something. You could picture a visual of something without ever having a visual description of something.
Yeah.
So,
random side note once again. I think you have the same copy of the book that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have it with you?
Yeah.
So you have like Harry flying on his broomstick trying to catch a snitch?
Yep, with a unicorn in the back and Fluffy and none of the stuff I ever noticed until...
Exactly. I just picked it up now, and I know I've looked at this before, but I haven't actually examined it while we've been doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just clicked that, yeah, there is definitely a unicorn and Fluffy on there.
Yeah.
And like... So I know you made a big deal the other week about how out of place unicorn seemed, and it's like, oh, it's on the front cover. What do you know?
Well, after learning about the Quidditch and the snitch and everything for the first time, I remember picking up the book and being like, "What is he? He's catching a snitch on the cover."
Yep.
But even after like that epiphany that I had, like I still had not really noticed Fluffy or unicorn up until I think it was last week. I'm like, there's a freaking unicorn on the cover.
Yep.
So
all sorts of good stuff there.
Hidden secrets. Also, why does Fluffy look like badgers?
Yeah, it's an interesting art style.
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily how I picture Fluffy, but I also kind of wonder how much of a description the illustrator had to go on
sure.
when they had to create this cover.
Right.
Because obviously the Harry that's pictured on the cover too isn't exactly how he was pictured in my head.
Right.
So
yeah.
And there's not a lot of illustrations in the book, but there's always like one picture at the beginning of each chapter. And some of those are kind of interesting too.
Right.
They're definitely in a certain art style. and definitely not how I always picture things.
And most of those I didn't really start to even notice until the centaur in the Forbidden Forest. And I'm like, what is going on with this chapter? Like, all the other ones just, like, I didn't really recognize at all.
But yeah, I just, like, through the trapdoor, there's a picture of Fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he has spots.
Yeah.
I do not picture Fluffy having spots.
No, not at all.
No. But, yeah, so it's just what the illustrator decided to do, so.
Yeah. Creative liberties.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we met Voldemort.
We did.
Officially.
Yep.
And he's just chilling out in the back of Quirrell's head. Seeing the name of this chapter, I'm just like, well, maybe he's going to, like, remove his face. Whoever the mystery character is.
Sprout a second head, or
something like a mask, and it's going to take off, and it's going to be like, you know, I don't know. It's a magical world. The face is on the back of his head.
Yep.
Okay.
Didn't you find it odd that he was constantly wearing a turban?
Nope. Well, okay. I think we even talked about it a little bit, but it's just like, I don't know why they keep harping on the fact that he's wearing a turban. It was brought up several times.
Yeah.
But, like, they never talked about what the other professors were ever wearing. You know, like, that was one defining characteristic that they kept bringing up with Quirrell.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Now it does. And before, I was just like, I don't know why he'd be wearing a turban. But sure, okay, whatever. That's his headwear of choice, and I'm not gonna disagree with that. But
comes from his world travels.
Yeah. Which we found out is when Voldemort got the best of him, and decided to jump onto the back of his head. Now, I don't really know how this whole partnership's working. Like, is it just his face? Does he have any sort of control over any part of his body? Like,
well, yeah, he from what we tell, it doesn't sound like he does.
Yeah.
He just needs Quirrell's body in order to kind of survive, I guess.
Transportation.
Yeah.
Quirrell is just an Uber.
I think Voldemort would be able to exist and move around a little bit without Quirrell, but he wanted the body to be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
But you hear him giving Quirrell commands, which seems to imply that he doesn't necessarily have control over Quirrell.
Right.
Like, he has a strong influence, maybe.
Right.
Or I guess it's more so that Quirrell fears him to some point. But
Quirrell still consciously has to make the decision to do what he's told.
Yeah. Because, like, he tells him to basically let him look at Harry with his own eyes.
Yeah.
And so Quirrell has to take off his turban, and he's arguing with him there already. It's like, but you're not strong enough yet.
Right.
And it's like, he doesn't really want to, but okay, fine. If you say so, I'll do it.
Sure. Weird.
Yeah. And I find it interesting too that they even mention that out in the forest when they were hunting the unicorn, that it was Quirrell that drank the unicorn blood.
Yeah.
And essentially nourished Voldemort. Which makes it interesting again then, because then when that creature in the forest kind of attacked Harry, that was Professor Quirrell once again.
Yeah. And like the visual I had of that creature was not...
Yeah.
of a professor who's of able-bodied and,
No, not at all.
so kind of weird.
But I think that's something too with the typical wizard outfit that is wearing like this giant billowing cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can hide a lot of what's going on underneath.
Sure.
If he's really, thin and worn out and kind of almost ghostly, you can hide that with the cloak.
Right. Very strange. Very strange. Quirrell then attacks Harry,
Yep,
tries to kill him,
he tries.
but he can't.
No.
There's a struggle.
His hands start blistering whenever he touches Harry.
Mm-hmm.
So Harry quickly figures out and turns it into a weapon.
Right.
And gets as much skin contact with Quirrell as he can.
I think he said he grabs his face.
Yeah.
Or not just touches him, not just like the visual of just like this kid like just grabbing this man's face, it's just like, wow, go for
Hey,
it.
someone's trying to kill you.
Oh, sure. It's just not something that you hear or see as far as like a defense mechanism. I'm gonna grab your face.
Yeah. But how often is your skin a weapon?
Sure.
It's not like you need to punch him.
Right.
It's you just need the contact with him. So
only other instance I could think of would be Rogue from X-Men.
yes. As soon as she takes off the gloves, there you go.
Right. Grabbing faces. There's a struggle, and then that's it. Harry wakes up.
Yep. Harry blacks out, wakes up again.
I was so afraid that this was going to be like a dream or a nightmare. I don't know why, but I had this moment of, she did it again. She just suckered me into this whole thing. She threw a curveball. She was like, nope, it's not Snape. It's Quirrell. And then like have all these emotional feelings about this whole situation. And then poof. Nope, just kidding. It's a nightmare.
And you see, that would be something you could pull off more in a movie.
Right.
If that was the first appearance we had of Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could keep switching because you don't necessarily know when the movie is going to end.
Right.
But when you're sitting here with half a chapter left in your book, things have to be ending soon. There's only so many times you can switch this up.
Sure. Like I said, it was a brief moment. You didn't have to read too much further to know that that wasn't the case. But I was just like, oh, really? Because it didn't end in like any sort of dramatic fashion. It just kind of stopped. Like the battle they were having just stopped. There wasn't like any sort of climax to it. It was like getting up to that point and it's just like, nope, like, and then he wakes up and you're like, what?
Yep, he wakes up, Dumbledore's there, and of course Harry freaks out right away.
Right.
Because he still thinks all of this just happened.
Mm-hmm.
But of course it's, I believe, 3 days later.
Right.
When Harry finally wakes up.
I like Dumbledore's comment. I think it's along the lines of, you haven't quite caught up yet or something like that.
Calm yourself, dear boy. You're a little behind the times.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. During this whole next conversation, I just love Dumbledore. He just seems like super amused by everything.
And see, this is where Dumbledore redeems himself for me. Like, every podcast, I'm just like, I don't think this guy is fit to run the school. Like, he is not a good headmaster of the school. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no control over his professors. He's making the worst decisions. He's just laid back and chill and just lets everything happen without any care. No. And then, like, he has this conversation. It's like, psh, he's had this under control from day one.
Oh, I'm glad we could bring you around. because I know I said like Snape might be my favorite character, but Dumbledore's right up there too.
You got me, Dumbledore. You got me. Well done, sir. Well done. In this conversation, when he's kind of explaining everything to Harry, because Harry doesn't quite understand yet, and the reader doesn't quite understand, so
Yep.
we're learning along with Harry.
Yeah, there's still a lot of explaining to do. Like,
sure.
In the copy of the book that we both have, it feels like there was the climax, except they didn't explain what happened yet. So
yeah,
it's almost an kind of anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm.
But then we still know we have, I believe, like 13 pages left.
Yeah.
So we still got some time to get things explained, and
Mm-hmm.
that's good, and it needs to happen.
One little thing I caught was Dumbledore correcting Harry when Harry called Professor Snape Snape.
Yes.
And he's like, Professor Snape.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, 2 paragraphs later, Dumbledore is just calling him Snape. He's not even referring to him as Professor Snape. He's just calling him Snape.
It's true, but I think he not so much wants to drive home that he's a professor,
Mm-hmm.
but he wants Harry to give him that respect as a professor.
No, I totally understand that, but it feels contradictive when, like, he turns around and doesn't refer to him as Professor Snape himself.
It's true, but
he doesn't have to. I mean, he's Dumbledore.
Yeah, Dumbledore is his superior.
Yeah.
Whereas Harry is Snape's subordinate, so.
But if he was talking to, like, a fellow professor or something, like, I could be okay with him just calling him Snape or whatever. But, like, if he's enforcing that, like, Harry should call him Professor Snape, like, you would also kind of expect Dumbledore to refer to him when he's speaking to Harry as Professor Snape.
It is definitely a little odd, but
that's kind of Dumbledore. Just like, whatever, man.
Yep.
He's Dumbledore. But we learned a lot from this conversation.
Yeah. I think is pretty much how the conversation starts out, or shortly after. What happened down in the dungeons between you and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret. So naturally, the whole school knows.
That is so perfect.
Yep.
Because his room is just filled with all these gifts and candies, and everybody's, like, wishing him a speedy recovery. They talk about the every flavor beans a little bit.
Yep. They do.
And Dumbledore says that, like, one time he had a vomit flavored every flavor bean, and since then he's kind of shied away from them.
Yep, been turned off. Yeah.
And he's like, but a toffee flavored one seems pretty good right now. Throws it in his mouth. It's not toffee.
No, not so much.
Not even Dumbledore is lucky when it comes to these stupid jelly beans. Why anybody still eats these things is beyond me. How is this a thing?
Well, why adults would eat them?
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things. As a kid, you have a lot of fun. You're just hanging out with your friends, and
sure.
It's like, oh, what's this one? I dare you eat this one, and you go along with it. But,
earwax flavor?
Yeah. Oddly enough, I don't think earwax, of all the flavors that you could come up with, I don't think earwax would be that bad. Because I guess, in my opinion, earwax doesn't have that much of a flavor to it. Like, I can't imagine that it would. It'd be waxy, I guess, but that's texture. That's not flavor. It's like it's like eating a candle or a crayon or something. Like, it doesn't necessarily have that much flavor.
I don't know, man. That doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah.
Blech. Anyway, it is a funny little addition to the whole explanation.
Yeah.
But we found out what Snape's deal is.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the biggest reveal, I think, of probably the entire book.
It's very possible.
So Snape does in fact hate Harry Potter.
Yes.
That's not like just assumed. Like that is legit. He hates Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But we found out why. And
Yeah.
it's super sad. Go ahead, explain it.
Well, yeah, he doesn't necessarily hate Harry Potter so much as hate his father.
Yeah.
But yeah, then to make matters worse, Harry's father saved Snape's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wants to hate him.
Right.
But he feels indebted.
Yep.
To him.
But then he died, so he couldn't like ever feel like he had to repay the debt.
Yes.
And that made him more mad at him. Essentially.
Yeah.
So then like he feels like he has to protect Harry Potter. But he does it in such a hating way because he's just like, I hate doing this, but I have to do it.
Yep.
He's so mad at the fact that he has to do this. And nobody's making him do it. It's just his own conscience.
Yeah. Yeah, he's driving himself to do it, but at the same time, he's not going to let anybody know that, oh, I need to protect Harry Potter.
Right.
It's the outer persona is I hate Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want people to think. That's what I want to do.
Yep.
But I'm not going to let anybody hurt him.
Right. If anyone's going to hurt him, it's going to be me.
Yes.
But so like all that's fine and dandy, and then Dumbledore explains it as, think of it as Harry and Malfoy's relationship.
Yes.
And it was just like, oh crap. Are you kidding me? I've been there the whole time.
Uh-huh.
Slytherin house and
Yep.
I'm sorry, fellow Slytherins out there. Look, I know a lot of bad wizards and witches come from the Slytherin household. In fact, every bad wizard or witch does in fact come from the Slytherin household. But I suppose at the end of the day, there's still some good Slytherin folks out there.
There you go.
That's the closest you're ever going to get to me agreeing that Slytherin house should still be part of Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take it for now.
Sure. One quick thing about all the gifts that Harry was getting in the medical ward.
Yeah.
The twins thought it would be hilarious to send Harry Potter a toilet seat.
Yep.
Because the twins.
Yes.
And of course, what's her name? Pomfrey?
Yeah, Madame Pomfrey. Yep.
Did not think it was a suitable get well gift.
Yes, did not think it was hygienic enough,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
Because it wasn't a new toilet seat.
No. And I kind of wonder if this is a throwback to the very beginning, too, when they're getting on the train and Mrs. Weasley had, told the boys, not to blow up any toilets.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, hadn't thought about that one. Thanks for the idea, Mom.
Right.
And so now, where did they get this toilet seat?
Mm-hmm.
Did they blow up a toilet?
What have they been up to?
Yeah, don't really know. Haven't been following their story.
Yeah. Then a moment happened. Wasn't quite ready for emotionally because let's be real, the last two chapters they've been specifically the last chapter has been quite the emotional roller coaster as it was. Hagrid comes in and he wants to give Harry a gift.
Okay, before we get there,
okay,
just a few notes I have here that I wanted to make mention of. A couple of my favorite quotes we ran across here. You may have heard me use them before, such as fear of a name only increases fear of the thing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strong theme that'll come through. When they're talking about Voldemort, they mentioned that he, not being truly alive, he cannot be killed.
Right.
It's an interesting concept to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And we also find out that Dumbledore has been the one sending Harry the invisibility cloak.
Right.
So not only did he know it was his father's,
Mm-hmm.
but his father left it with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore thought it was wise enough to give it back to Harry.
Right. Which I kind of suspected.
Yeah.
It felt like if anybody was doing that, it was going to be Dumbledore.
Yeah. Someone who could get around without anybody knowing, someone who knew knew about the cloak in the first place and knew where it was going to end up, which makes you think that he always got it back to Harry in time for certain things. Like they talked about Harry, like Dumbledore wanting Harry to experience the mirror early on,
and
which,
learn how to use it.
Yeah, he used the invisibility cloak for that.
Mm-hmm.
And he used the invisibility cloak to sneak into the library. He used to get rid of the dragon. No matter what he did with it, it always came back to him.
Makes me wonder something.
Yeah.
I feel, we talked about this earlier in the show, the stupid centaurs who know everything that's going to happen, but don't talk to anybody about what's going to happen. I have a feeling that maybe one of them might be friends with Dumbledore.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw that theory out there.
All right. I like theory. I love theories, especially your theories.
Because Dumbledore seemed to always know what's going on and be one or two or several steps ahead of everybody else.
Sure.
We know these centaurs allegedly, I mean, no proof of this because they're just all talk at this point, know everything that's going to happen before it happens. I feel like one of them might be working with Dumbledore a little bit more closely than they lead on. So we'll throw that out there.
Yeah, I basically love this commentary when Harry's talking to Ron and Hermione about everything that happened, and he talks about Dumbledore. He's a funny man, Dumbledore. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knows more or less everything that goes on here. You know, I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he just taught us enough to help.
Yep.
And yeah, that's. I mentioned earlier in this episode that Dumbledore wasn't one of their teachers.
Right. He kind of was.
Maybe not directly.
Yeah.
But the more you look at it, the more he kind of did come in just when he needed to and give them the lessons they needed to learn.
Yep. And I love how Ron was so endearing of Dumbledore kind of being off his rocker.
Yeah.
Because Ron really looks up to Dumbledore a lot.
Yes.
But he loves how crazy Dumbledore kind of is.
Yep.
He doesn't love him for being like a great wizard or anything. He's just like, this guy's wacko, and I love that about him. I'm like, that's so you, Ron.
Absolutely.
I go back to the cloak and it being, Harry's father's and whatnot. I love how Dumbledore threw in that his father used it at Hogwarts to sneak into the kitchen to get food.
Yes.
So good.
Yep. Which I guess since you brought it up, I did make a note about that actually, but I wasn't gonna necessarily bring it up unless you did, because I know you've asked before about like where the food comes from.
Yeah.
And so now we have our first mention. There is actually a kitchen.
Mm-hmm. There is food in there.
Yeah, we don't know much more about it, but
right.
There is actually a kitchen, and you can sneak into it and get food.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Hagrid now?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Hagrid comes in, and he's visiting Harry, who's recovering and whatnot. And Hagrid brings him a gift. And like I was saying, like this whole chapter was an emotional roller coaster from like shock and awe to like anger and frustration and confusion and everything. And then Hagrid comes in and he brings this gift to Harry, which is a leather-bound book, and it's a photo album, a scrapbook of pictures of Harry's family. And it wasn't pictures that Hagrid had, and it wasn't like this book that he had been just holding on to, but like he went out and he inquired all over to people that knew the Potters to ask them if they had any photos, so that he could put this book together for Harry, because he knew that's all Harry really wanted, was to know his family and know where he came from.
Yep. He put a lot of time and effort and thought into this.
Mm-hmm. And like just talking about it now, like I'm starting to get kind of emotional about it, and I don't really know why, but like reading it, I wasn't expecting it. And it hit hard. It hit really hard, because it's like Hagrid has been there from the beginning for Harry. Like he's probably Harry's best friend when it comes down to it. And like he will do anything to protect him. Yes, he's the worst secret keeper in the world. Yes, he makes really bad decisions frequently. You know, we still don't know his whole story on why he got expelled and what his whole deal is. But like he loves Harry, and like just this gesture was like incredible, you know, for him to do this, because of all the things that Harry's been through, and like the stone and saving Hogwarts and Voldemort and everything else. Hagrid's just like, he just wants to see pictures of his mom and dad.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost feels like one of those kind of minor details she just throws in there into the book at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it kind of hits hard. Yeah. After everything they've been through and everything that's going on in his book and everything that was just explained in this last chapter, yeah, it's a lot to take in.
Yep.
And then tops it off with that.
And I thought that was going to be like the last emotional moment of this chapter. Like I was like, okay, that's the peak. Like we finally like hit the climax of the story, like on the emotional level. Because I was like, the last few chapters is just going to be wrapping up here, and everything's going to be happy ending, and we're going to be good. But then they have the end of the year banquet.
Yep.
And
Another
Harry,
big feast, your favorite.
I love these feasts. Although they didn't really go into length about like the food and stuff they were talking about. I don't even think they mentioned the food, to be honest.
No, we had too much other stuff to cover.
We knew it was a feast, and that's enough to make my mouth water. But this is where they announced the House Cup winner.
Yes.
And the hall is decked out in green and silver to celebrate the Slytherin house, as horrible as they are. Because they won. You know, they had the most points. Ravenclaw stomped Gryffindor in their last Quidditch match because Harry wasn't there.
Yep.
Which I feel like Gryffindor still should have been like a decent team. Like I still felt like they were a good team.
Yes.
Without Harry.
But they had no chance of catching the snitch. No one else can do that.
Oh. So they didn't have like a backup seeker.
Well, I don't think so. Because didn't Harry try to quit once before? And they say something like, "Wait, we've got no one to back you up."
That's right. Yeah,
We'd have no chance of winning if you quit. So
right. Okay.
We'd rather have you on the team.
I guess I hadn't thought about that.
But regardless, even if they did have a backup seeker, they're not going to be as good as Harry.
Sure.
and so they still their odds go way down.
Sure. So anyway, the points are announced, and Gryffindor is in last place, and third place was Hufflepuff. I mean, I can't imagine them being second place. Let's be real.
Most likely, yeah.
Good old Hufflepuff. Third place. It's a strong showing for Hufflepuff. Second place was Ravenclaw, and first place was, of course, Slytherin.
Yes.
Everybody's celebrating. Draco Malfoy, like, he's just grinning from ear to ear. He's the happiest kid in the place. Gryffindor, like, they're humbled. They know that, you know, things happened that prevented them from winning, and mainly everybody's just happy that Harry's okay. You know, they're disappointed, but then Dumbledore, he's just like, before we're gonna give out this cup, though, gotta settle some things.
Yep.
That's when things got interesting.
Year's not over yet.
Not quite. Not until he says it is. So then he awards Ron Weasley 50 points for being so darn good at chess. Playing the best game of wizard chess that he's seen in years.
Yep.
Something like that. 50 points for Hermione. What was
for the use? What?
What'd she get the points for specifically?
For the use of cool logic in the face of fire.
That's right. Play on words. I like it.
Yes. What once again shows you Dumbledore definitely knows what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I read that like twice. I'm like, why was it cool logic? And I was like, ice, fire. Yeah, got it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Touche, Dumbledore. Touche. And then Harry Potter got 60 points for his courageous act and whatnot. And as like he's awarding the points, like I'm going back and adding them up in my head.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, 60 points? That's a weird number.
Yep.
But it's weird because that put him in a tie with Slytherin. So I'm like, oh, cool. They get to share the cup. Like, he doesn't want to take the cup away from Slytherin because, you know, they kind of did earn it. You know, they earned the points they had.
And I did like the quote there, too. Those who could add up while yelling themselves hoarse. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know math in your head isn't everybody's thing, but those who could add up.
Right.
Like, okay. Yeah,
sure. I mean, there's not like
a
giant scoreboard, you know, that's showing the points. Like, people are...
Well, there is, but it's out in the hallway.
Oh, okay, right.
It's out in the entrance hall. Like,
sure.
It's not in the Great Hall. So.
Yeah. So people are doing this on the fly here.
Yep.
But I'm like, okay, they're gonna have a tie, and they're gonna share the house cup, and
sure,
you know, fine. Or they'll have some weird little contest, a chocolate frog eating contest to determine the winner, or something just bizarre, right? And I'm thinking, okay, let's see how this plays out, right?
Yep.
Neville got 10 points.
Yes, he did.
For standing up to his friends.
Yep.
Like, I lost it again reading this. I'm like, this freaking kid who's just been in the way and has had the worst luck of anybody throughout this entire book, who had like this one shining moment that still ended badly for him because it's Neville and everything ends badly for him, gets the final 10 points, where like it was described as like he didn't have a single point earned for Gryffindor the entire year.
Yes, exactly. He had never won so much as a point for Gryffindor before. That right there should tell you just how bad his year has been.
And then he gets the last points for standing up to his friends. And it's just like emotionally, like I was just like spent at that point. I'm like, I'm done. Like Neville, this kid that I've just been railing on podcast after podcast. The whole book has just been poor Neville, poor Neville, poor Neville. And he comes through in the clutch just for doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Pays off.
So good, Matt. So good.
Yep.
I'm done. Sure, they go home. They meet Miss Weasley again, and the Dursleys pick up Harry, and they're not super stoked. Harry's super stoked to use magic, even though he's not supposed to, because they'll never see the note that Harry got about not using magic.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. All that stuff ended. Like, the moment Neville got those points, I'm like, I'm done. Let's wrap this book up.
And they did.
Yeah. Incredible.
There you have it.
Incredible.
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
We did it.
You made it.
We made it.
We made it.
And all you out there listening made it as well. What an incredible first book. There's 6 more?
There are 6 more books.
I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's like I want them to be as good, but the emotional part of it, like let's tone that down a little bit. Let's focus on the hard hitting adventures, not the emotional. Boy, it was good, Matt. It was good.
I'm glad to hear it. Very, very glad to hear it.
Good first book. I'm excited to watch the movie.
Yeah.
And I could totally see why you wouldn't let me watch the movie before reading the book again.
Yes.
Because a lot of things would have been ruined, I feel like.
Yep. And that's part of the reason I feel bad. I don't have a better way of putting it, but yeah, I feel bad for the people who watch the movies before reading the books.
Sure.
Because in my opinion, the books really are that much better.
Yeah. Well, we'll see next week when we talk about the movie. I will give a full review of the film. I don't really know how the format of the podcast is going to go. We'll
that's still up in the air.
We'll just chat about it. We'll have fun. We'll talk about the movie. I think I'm going to try to find the best. I know like the actual recipe is not available. To make my own butterbeer.
Yep, there are a number of recipes out there.
Yeah.
I haven't tried any of them myself because after having the stuff down at, I know they had to go through numerous recipes just to get something approved to use at the parks.
And while we didn't get a butterbeer reference specifically, Hagrid offered the kids a drink at one point. And I feel like he might have been talking about butterbeer.
Sounds good.
But I'm going to try to make some butterbeer while I watch the movie.
I like it.
I'm going to go all in. I'm going to have fun with it.
Yeah.
But before we watch the movie and podcast about it next week, we need to give away an entire set of Blu-rays for the entire 8-film collection of Harry Potter.
So, very similarly to our last giveaway, I think it worked out pretty well. I'm just going to have you pick a number.
Okay.
This time, I need a number between 1 and 13.
1 and 13, huh?
Yes.
This is how I'm going to pick this number.
All right.
I am going to pick the number based on the amount of buttons that Hagrid has on his undercoat on the pop vinyl figure that I'm holding in my hand.
I don't even know how many that is, so this will be interesting.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 visible buttons on Hagrid's undercoat on the pop vinyl figure that was so generously sent my way from Atari Alex on Twitter. Number 6 is the winner, Matt.
All right. Number 6 would be Rose F. Death.
Whoa! Awesome.
I think you're familiar with that name as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, Malik.
Mm-hmm. Long-time member of our communities.
Yeah. Malik, I will be sending you an email in reply to your entry. So be watching for that. If you don't see anything in the next day or two, feel free to get a hold of me on Twitter and we'll figure it out.
Definitely.
But yeah,
Awesome.
we'll get those over to him as soon as possible.
Congratulations to Malik, the winner, and thank you to everybody for entering, for leaving reviews on iTunes. It definitely helps us. It helps the show.
Absolutely.
And again, as we've continued to say, just because you didn't win this giveaway does not mean that your review will go without any sort of reward, as they will go on into any other future giveaways that we do. You will still be entered with the review that you left. So we appreciate it. We hope you guys definitely appreciate it. It's a fun thing to do. I will say this, in a few weeks, we have some Harry Potter Lego Dimension figures being released.
Yep.
Definitely going to be doing some giveaways with those. I will tell you that right now.
Good to hear.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we'll continue doing stuff to say thank you to you guys out there as much as we can, because we definitely do appreciate it. I think that's all I got for this show, Matt. How about you?
That sounds pretty good. Yeah. A good way to finish up.
Episode 11 is going to be a review of the first film. I'm excited for it. Not nearly as excited as I was going into this podcast, but I mean, what more can you expect, right? This was the finale of the first book, so I'm not looking forward. Like, I already have the second book. Like, I already bought it. I'm good to go.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to like all the books now. I'm going to be sad when we're done with this whole thing. Like, there is an end point to this, Matt, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
We'll just go back and do it again.
Who knows? Who knows? It'll be a good time to, go back 5 years later.
I'm just feeling like the end of this book, it just like made me realize like there's going to be an end to this whole series. And
Sure.
I'm starting to feel like what Harry Potter fans felt like when this whole series started, like knowing there was a specific amount of books to come.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine like going back to like book 7 and knowing that was going to be like the last true Harry Potter book that you got.
Yeah. And just be thankful that you have the next book ready and waiting for you.
Right.
You didn't have to wait for it to come out.
Right. We'll talk about that as we go forward. But yeah, we're gonna wrap this episode up here. Me personally, you could find on Twitter at the noise with a Y. Please be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Tales from GH. I have a feeling I will probably be doing Lego Dimension giveaways from the Twitter account. So if you follow now, thank you. If not, jump on that, because now is a good time to do so. Matt, where could people find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at As a Matter of Matt, or you can reach me via email for the show. You can write tales from Godric's Hollow at gmail.com. I would also like to note at this time, I forgot to mention this sooner, but this is also when we really want to hear from you about the length of the show and the length of the readings that we've been doing. Now that we made it through the first book, we've been doing 2 chapters per episode per week, basically. Mm-hmm. And that seemed to be going so well so far.
Yep.
At this point, I'm planning on doing 2 chapters a week for the second book.
Perfect.
But if for some reason everybody thinks that's a bad idea, please let me know, whether on Twitter or email or whatever the case may be. Write in, let me know what you think. And if there's a big uproar over it, maybe that's something we can obviously still change.
Sure.
But I think the way the second book is set up, yet that we can still do 2 chapters a week. So
yeah,
that's what we'll be planning for now.
the more chapters we try to fit into a podcast, the longer the podcast tends to go. This episode was particularly long because it was the end of the book. It was bound to happen.
Yep.
But
there's a lot to talk about.
I think any more than 2 chapters, it makes for a little bit too long of a podcast.
Yep.
Generally.
Yeah, I don't see us going for more chapters. Eventually, I think I've mentioned before, we'll probably cut it down to 1 chapter, actually, because the chapters will get longer and there will be more to talk about as we get deeper and deeper into this story.
Sure.
So, but
keep it flexible. But
if for some reason you think it should be cut down to 1 chapter already, that would be interesting feedback. Yeah. But I think for book 2, we'll still stick with 2.
Sure, definitely. That being said, it's been a fun first book.
It has.
Excited to talk about the movie and excited to move on to book number 2. Don't even remember what it's called. Not gonna lie to you. I have it sitting on the kitchen table. Couldn't tell you the name of it. Saved my life.
It's all good. We'll cover that next week when we move it to it.
It's something or another. I got so used to saying Sorcerer's Stone for so many weeks. It's going to be weird transitioning out of that. But until next week, Muggle out.
Mischief managed.